lined up the top stars from Hollywood and from all over the world to entertain you on a giant screen with the few colorful motion pictures you've been hearing about and reading
It's
about.
showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
We're delighted to have you with us. They're driving theater.
You'll find something to please you to add to your evening's enjoyment.
Is pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
What's up, boys and girls? You are tuned in to the Drive-In Speaker Box. It is Monday night, April 25th, 2022. It is 8 o'clock Central Standard Time on this lovely Monday evening, and I'm your host, Bo, the boom operator.
And I'm Slick Doggy the Grip.
And we've got a show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about movies like we do. And if the title of the show hasn't gotten you at least a little bit clued in on what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about the unbearable weight of massive talent, as well as the Northman, or Northman, or Northman. How do you say it?
I don't know. I wish I would have looked up how to say it in some sort of Scandinavian.
Northman.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to be talking about those later in the program. Shout out to Tony over on YouTube. Howdy do to you as well. If you guys are listening to the audio version of this podcast, wherever you get your audio podcasts from, be it Spotify or Tuned In or Apple Podcasts or Google Music, you can always tune in live Monday nights, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. You can check us out on our Facebook, our Twitch, or our YouTube channel, and you can participate in the live chat. It's a lot of fun, and we love to have it. So there you go. But let's do what we always do, and let's start with some news, shall we? There was some stuff that happened, some announcements that were made. I don't know if you heard about this one, but you know, with the success of Sonic 2, Sega is like, well, we're not doing consoles anymore. Let's make movies, baby. And there has been a green light for
Vector Man the movie.
Unfortunately not. And not Booger Man either.
Oh, but Booger Man wasn't a Sega game.
No, it was a cross-platform, wasn't it?
Yeah, you could play it on Super Nintendo, but I only ever found it for rent on Genesis, so that's normally where
You know what I think would have made a pretty good, like, now that I'm thinking about the success of Bad Guys in the theater this weekend, all the talking animals doing people things. Did you ever play the Sega Genesis game James Pond?
Once.
And it's a pretty good game. I think James Pond would be a pretty good kids movie where it's like, you know, a CGI fish that's like
He was a frog.
I thought he was a fish.
Nah, James Pond was.
No, he was a fish. I know he was a fish. I played this. I'm gonna use the computer in front of me. James Pond, underwater agent.
He is a fish.
He is a fish.
What was the frog in a tuxedo video game that I'm thinking about?
I thought that was just the WB frog. The hello, my baby.
No,
hello, my darling. Hello, my
that guy.
ragtime gal. An Earthworm Jim McLean says that was a TV show.
Well, also not Sega.
Yes, it was.
No, Earthworm Jim was
It
not.
was another cross-platform.
Yeah, but it's not produced by Sega. Sega
Okay.
can't just make movies of things that aren't produced by Sega Studios.
They could. I mean, they can, but yeah, you're right. They can't. They'd have to partner up with the indie company that made it. But James Pond, I believe, was Electronic Arts, but it was his Sega Genesis exclusive. There wasn't a whole lot of like Sega properties. I mean, Golden Axe was Sega, and Kid Chameleon was Sega, and Super Mario Sonic, whatever his name is. But the movie that's got green light was none of these things that we've been talking about. Unfortunately, it's Streets of Rage.
That's even better, though.
You're not wrong, because
There's a semblance of a story there, kind of.
Because you two, you people don't know Streets of Rage out there, but this game was pretty awesome. Essentially Final Fight, except for way more gender and ethnically diverse. And Final Fight was just big white guy, other white guy, and karate white guy.
Dude, but Final Fight was way better because it's SNK and SNK rules.
I mean, yes, but Streets of Rage had better music, and the Streets of Rage, like, I mean, I have to play just like some of this soundtrack because it's just too good. Like, I mean, can you just imagine a movie that opens up to this? You're just like, this is the movie I want to see. And it was like, you know, and the cop, you call like the cop, and it comes over and is all like, you know, shoots a bazooka in the air.
And then you eat apples from the trash.
I mean, how is that not awesome? I mean, Streets of Rage, clearly some of the best video game music of all time. But they're making a movie. They're going to make a movie about it. And a lot of people are like, oh, that'd be dumb. But you go back and you look at movies that are kind of like Streets of Rage. And you've got like Streets of Fire, which early, I believe, Willem Dafoe's in that one. And then you got The Warriors. Like, what if we got a Warrior-style Streets of Rage beat-em-up movie? That would be super cool. As Johnny Dalton says, Columns, the movie, Outrun, Toe Jam and Earl. I would watch a Toe Jam and Earl show.
I really hope that all the bad guys in the Streets of Rage movie are identical and like they just change colors every now and then, and they just hire the same 4 or 5 actors to be the bad guys, or get like sets of twins to be all of the bad guys.
Changes just the yellow pants, red pants, orange pants. Like a Bobo in Double Dragon. But, you know, we've seen movies like Double Dragon that weren't so good.
It's true.
And, you know, we've got, you know, you just don't know what you're going to get all the time. But I think, you know, if the same team that handled Sonic is handling Streets of Rage, it could be good. Now, rumor has it that the Derek Kolstad, who is known for writing John Wick and Nobody, is set to write part of the script. So that could prove pretty cool. So yeah. Oh, geez. All right. Redeemed. Over on Twitch, Vince over here using his channel points says Bo takes a sip. He says he's never gonna like use these points because on this prize because I'm always drinking, but I haven't started drinking yet, so I guess I'm gonna go ahead and take a swig of this delicious Bombay Sapphire for cool and refreshing summertime sips. Choose not Bombay Sapphire. There's plenty of better gins out there, but this is what I have. Anyway, Streets of Rage. Pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that, and that's cool news. Also, in the not cool news, just in, Twitter got bought.
Yeah,
Elon did it. He bought Twitter.
$44 billion.
Do you know the problems we could solve with $44 billion? Do you know the diseases we could cure, the jobs we could create, the infrastructure that we could build? Like $44 billion could build like a rail infrastructure in the United States. You know, I mean, you could probably build a bullet train from New York to L.A. and Chicago for $44 billion. I mean, that's probably, I don't know. I mean, $1 billion is so hard to think about. Like, money, like, if you think about money, your head melts. Like, if you think about guys like Elon Musk, your head melts. You go full scanners. It's just, you can't compute. Like, that's why these people are psychopaths.
So many dollars.
You know, it's insane. But, that's going to be interesting to see what happens with Twitter, but that's not really movie related. But what is movie related is Netflix. Netflix, we've been talking about Netflix a lot, how they're going to be cracking down on password sharing and all this kind of stuff. They're talking about adding ads. So, you know, here's the thing. I'm not opposed to Netflix adding ads if they went full on like Crackle, where it's like, there it is.
Oh, it's free.
It's free. Check it out. Ads. But if they're just like, we're going to give you $2 off a month if you put up with that, eat a bag of dicks. Like, no way am I going to, you know.
It's better than the Hulu model where you pay for ad-free and you still get ads.
I mean, guys, we are rewinding so far back to cable. We're running head first back to cable, you know, and the only thing we gained from it is choice. Like, if you really look at what's happening, you know, what pushed us away from cable is, okay, it was expensive and it wasn't on demand. But it was getting there. And then once streaming came and created on demand, everybody was like, well, this is the future of everything. And now, we're like, cut the cable. And now we're just like, how do we put that back on? These streaming companies are just like, we gotta put 9 cables in them. We got a full-on matrix in the back of their head. We got to get them. But yeah, it's Netflix. They got to figure out how to pay for Stranger Things because that's coming out. And apparently, we're spending up to $30 million an episode or something insane like this, making it one of the most expensive TV shows ever created. And it's not even that good. Last season wasn't that good.
I've still yet to ever watch one full episode of that show.
Stranger Things?
Yeah.
The first season was cool.
It opened up with a bunch of tabletop game nerds, and I was like, no way.
Like, you're not a tabletop game nerd?
Nah.
I've played tabletop games with you before. I've played slot cars with you as a grown man.
That's way cooler. Slot cars are rad.
I mean, yes, they are. So are tabletop games. Don't try to pretend to be. That's why we're not bigger than we are. Is you're constantly pretending to not be your true authentic self, Jake.
What do you mean?
You just need to lean into your true authentic self, and then the show will take off.
All right. And I'm a cool party playboy. Let's do it. Real self, rock and roll.
See, we're going back to projected self. We need to go to true, authentic self, I think is the... And I think Vince hit it over there with the emojis. But
that's for you, doggy.
Okay. I mean, there's more than enough to go around. Anyway, Netflix, they said they lost a couple 100,000 subscribers recently, set to lose, maybe 2 million this quarter.
Because it got more expensive, again... And they're like, well, if it's too expensive, maybe you'll put up with commercials. It's like, oh.
Well, also, I think the problem comes back to something that we've talked about on the show a handful of times.
Can't password share.
And, episodic viewing, and binge viewing is kind of terrible for this model. Especially a subscription-based model. You look at how more shows like Disney Plus and Amazon Prime are starting to lean back into weekly episodic releases. Even Hulu's starting to do it now, because the problem with binge content is like you make an 8 or 9 episode series that costs $30 million an episode, and somebody watches it literally in an afternoon. Is like, all right, what next? What next? What are we going to watch next? But you say, okay, well, I've got a 9-episode deal. That's going to be stretched out over 2 months, so that person has to stay a subscriber for at least 2 months to see the whole thing. And don't but me with I like binging.
Yeah.
It's like everybody does, of course.
If I can't watch it all at once or whenever I want to, I kind of don't want it.
But that's the problem, is they cannot make... Hey, thanks, Bottle Rocket. They can't make the content that we need fast enough because we consume it too fast. We're over here just like double-fisting content, being like, I got it on my phone. Well, I got it on my phone. I also got it on my TV. Well, I got a TV. I got my laptop. And they're just like wolfing down content constantly.
Yeah, but the problem with episodic releases is you get like Game of Thrones stuff. And they're like, well, sorry, we know it's been 3.5 years, but here's 1 episode. Oh, we're taking a break again. Here's 2 episodes. We know you were disappointed with it, but if you wait 1 more year, the next episode will come out.
No, that was only a product because they said it got released the opposite the other way, and they were like, we're running out of content. We got to stretch this out, but we got to fit it back in the old model. If they just do it, film it, release it, time lapse capsule style, it's going to be fine, and they're going to be able to retain customers that way. This is the economics of this thing. And
Johnny says something about quit canceling the original shows. Netflix puts out a lot of really crappy movies, and then whenever there's something that's like a decent series, they're just like, it's over. Well, like Amazon and everyone does it, like they did with The Tick. Mm-hmm. They're just like, forget it. Screw it.
And again, it comes back to the rapid consumption of the content that they're putting out there. Especially on streaming media, it's hard to figure out how to, revenue generation from these things, right? Of course, most of these places think that, okay, if we've got eyes on it and everyone's talking about it and it becomes memeable and it's the only thing on the internet, yes, that's a successful show. But a show like The Tick it took a minute, I mean, it's still one of the most highest ranked shows on Amazon, but it didn't break all those records the first week. It took a couple of months, and then everybody's like, oh my God, this is amazing, this is incredible. But it took a while for it to get there. But that time, some shareholders and Amazon guys are like, well, what's the story on Tick? Not making money? All right, axe it. We got to go to the next thing. And I think with stretching things out and going back to episodic nature of these things, it gives these shows a little bit of time to breathe and figure out if we truly need to, axe these things, regardless if of course we like gorging it all at once. I mean, I feel like we're all bulimic when it comes to TV. Like we're just watching all these movies and we go, oh, I'm sick, and then we just puke it all up and go, oh, now I'm hungry again, and give me another Marvel, give me another Doctor Strange, and it's just not a good way to do it. Yeah. Did you go to Steel Panther? Tony's asking.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, not that long ago on their latest tour. It was a good time. Steel Panther's a ridiculous, very fun band to watch anytime. I like them.
Yeah. I mean, I like that you're wearing a Matrix style shirt of Steel Panther.
That was like that was the whole thing.
Night Owl actually says, I can't prioritize to commit to more than one episodic show a week, even though that's a struggle. Unfortunately, we are all too busy. But, I hear this all the time. And I'm the king of busy. But it's not. We're not, because we somehow still manage to find time to binge 9 hours of whatever, right? And
it depends on the show.
Well, it does.
Some things you can have just in the background because you don't have to watch it. Reality shows or like home makeover shows. You really only have to see like that's what it looked like, and then you hear them clean, and then you see the end. And you're like, oh wow, look at that. There's things like that you can have going on. Or my fiance watches a lot of true crime stuff. You can just listen to it as like a,
it's just like
podcast style thing. Yeah.
But I think that the us saying that we're too busy to pencil in episodic, once a week. You don't have to tune in live like you do. I mean, all of you guys are clearly tuning in live Monday nights at 8:00 Central Standard Time to listen to us, which is cool, and we thank you. But, like, you've got a whole week to watch this episode, and then the next one's going to come out. And it's like, it stretches that period of interest. You go back to shows like Lost, where we can blame Lost for all of this stuff, really. And because
Abrams.
It was. I mean, freaking Abrams is the reason why we're sitting here talking about this phenomena. But, it was episodically released, but it became so viral, and people were talking about it at work. Each episode, did you get caught up? Do you know what's going on? What do you think? Blah 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 blah. And with binge culture, we feel like we have to hurry up and watch all of it, and we can't really process it or digest it or talk about it or discuss it with our friends. And then it just becomes so much more disposable that way. And it really kind of brings up a lot of other kind of ideas and sort of ideology about how we consume media. And I think Netflix is having a really hard time figuring out this model, because you can't just constantly spend millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to have enough content for a binge person for more than a month. Like, it's amazingly fast how we can have no time and blaze through 3 seasons of one show in like a week, so now let's just only do this to support you guys. I put my kid to bed late in order to watch. For some people, it's logistically difficult. Thank you. But yeah, you're right. It is a challenge, but you got the whole week to do it. And I think it's a better model. I think it's a better model, not just because I think convenience is something that we take for granted and we rely on too much to make excuses for other conveniences that we may or may not need. Like, I think art and culture and cinema and music and all of these things that we kind of just take for granted in our lives as always being an omnipresent option for us to consume when we're bored. It used to be a special thing. Now it's just a time filler. And I think that's why we're getting less and less interesting creative content, which is a part of a big diatribe that I'm going to be having later in the show when we talk about the two films we're going to be talking about. But if we make time for content that's good and we talk about it and we savor the flavor, so to speak, then I think we'll be presented with better stuff. But again, like Night Owl, she said, the economics are real. You cannot keep asking a company to make 16-hour epic, amazing content every day of the week. Can't do it. It's impossible. I mean, how many cars can you fix in a day?
Depends on what they need fixed.
Can hundreds of them? Can you alone fix hundreds of cars in a day?
No,
I can't do
it. Fix one. It has too many problems.
Well, but the point remains is like you creating it's finite, and consumption is infinite, and that's where those two things intersect. So, food for thought. Anyway, Netflix, that took up a lot of time. Expendables 4, we were going to talk about Expendables 4. Yes. A new poster has been released. It's big tagline, they'll die when they're dead, which, I guess makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't it?
It's got 50 Cent, it's got Jason Statham, it's got Megan Fox, Dolph Lundgren, Sylvester Stallone, Tony Jaa, Iko Uwais. It's got the whole gang's getting back together. Randy Couture's there. We're getting another one, and they're saying it's going to be the most explosive yet. Which, why wouldn't they say that? They're like, we're making one that's probably going to be not as good as the last one. Check it out.
That's how each of them have been so far.
Right. Tony says, to be honest, waking up sleepy-headed to begin the week every Monday morning, stubborn and remembering that I get some driving speaker box fixed gets me through one of the toughest days of the week. Heck yeah, man. We're happy to help you. That's how we do
Johnny,
it.
spoilers and ground effects will fix a lot of things. Have you never played
Spoiler
Need
alert.
for Speed?
Let's see what else. Let's just go ahead and we're running. There's not a whole lot
the majority of the
news
news has just been occupied with Johnny Depp court case stuff. So
pooping on beds, cutting off fingers. It's all a lot of domestic abuse in Hollywood right now, which I read a really interesting article today that was about sort of the concept of celebrity and what it means to be a celebrity. And this is a topic that I could almost dedicate a whole show to, and I'm not going to today because we've got a couple of movies to review. But maybe one day I'll just come up over here and start talking to you guys about it. But in the sort of golden age of Hollywood, even pre-social media, I guess is what we can say, with paparazzi and the idea of celebrity, it was like celebrities were kind of larger than life. We looked at them as fantasy characters that played fantasy characters that we worship, idolize, and we're like, oh my God, wouldn't we want to be that? That's so amazing. But now we're kind of with this hyper intrusive amount of content and just, just social media and invasive news that we get about celebrities. We're finding out that not only are they real people, but they're also, probably more screwed up than we are, and because they've got different problems, because problems do scale, and it's not quite as sexy and cool to be a celebrity anymore. And so you're like, ooh, well, everybody used to think Johnny Depp was like the coolest guy ever, but now we're kind of looking at him and go like, what a little bitch, and it's like not cool. He's not as cool as he used to be. He's letting this lady like literally shit all over him. And you're like, how could Johnny Depp? We thought he was so just amazing. Who would poop on Jack Sparrow? And would Jack Sparrow let someone poop on them? And it kind of begs the question of how we view celebrity, and are we going to be moving away from a period of putting these people on pedestals or just kind of pitying them? I don't know. It's an interesting concept, but we can talk about it another time. Jake is obviously bored, and
I have nothing invested in it. I don't know. It's not really celebrity gossip and news isn't really my thing.
Well, it's a big part of movies. Now it used to not be.
But yeah, I remember when we could talk about like the picture and cinematography and audio of movies and the behind the scenes, and it wasn't all just like, well, then Ezra Miller threw a chair at someone's head in Hawaii.
because now it's all behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, because I think it's like, you know, you worship these people, you idolize these people, and you think you want to be like these people. And, you know, we get to a point where we see these people so much outside of movies that we, you know, where does the movie stop and where does the person end? And, you know, it's a weird blurry line. And that actually leads into, you know, a lot of themes in Unbearable Weight of, or the, whatever the name of that movie is, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. But anyway, let's talk about the movies that are coming out this weekend, because there are a few coming out, mostly indie films. One sort of lower budget action film that Jake's probably going to be super pumped about. It's from director Martin Campbell, starring Liam Neeson and Guy Pearce. It's called Memory. And I'll give you one guess as to what kind of character Liam Neeson is playing.
Cool dude.
And by cool dude, we mean
a guy with a gun.
Yeah, that has a set of skills and is probably on the run and using that set of skills to get revenge on something or another. And so this one he's an assassin for hire that's getting old, and he becomes a target because he refuses to complete a job. And it's actually a remake of an old Belgian film. But here we have, you know, go ahead.
I was going to say it's kind of like a combination of several of his movies. You got Taken, the one where he had to protect his RoboCop son, and Run All Night. That's what that one was called.
Run All Night.
And then the other one about him being a guy whose memory wasn't perfect, and he was trying to figure out if his life was real or what was real in his life, where he was in Germany and he crashes into that river in that taxi ride, and I can't remember the name of that movie.
Well, much like this movie, he can't remember stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He, you know, it's called Memory, and I think it's pretty, you know, I mean, Liam Neeson's going on, what, like 87,000 years old at this point? 79. He's in his 70s, right?
Is he?
I want to say he's like in his,
Wow.
he's got to be in his 70s. Like, this dude is freaking ancient. Let's see. I mean, he was born in 1952, for Christ's sake.
Exactly 70.
He's 70 freaking years old, and he's a hitman. Like, and that's I mean, he's a great actor, and I like Liam Neeson, but you know, the fact that this is a movie about a hitman on his meds losing his mind, and it's like, who, like, that's that again, you know, where lines blur. I mean, you know, there was an interesting Vice piece, which Vice has descended into stupid Snapchat clickbait of the past year, but they were talking about hitmen and how, like, you know, Hollywood glamorizes hitmen really, really hardcore, but like the reality of it is it's usually some asshat on the dark web that's like, I'll kill your ex-husband for $15,000, and then bundles the whole shit up, and everybody goes to jail.
Well, it's like, think of it, there's like famous hitmen, and like their whole thing is they got caught, and that's how you know about them. Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
but you know, the idea of the Liam Neesons that are like in a suit, like screwing a silencer onto a gun and being like, knock, knock, pew, pew, and you know, getting into a Rolls Royce and being like, leave the money in the platform, and you know, it's like, yeah.
I mean, Night Owl Ashley has a good point. Old people, I mean, who's gonna be like, oh, I watched that guy kill that dude? They're like, bro, he's 70. Are you kidding?
Well, that was like basically the premise of that Clint Eastwood movie where he was the drug runner. He's like, no one's gonna expect this old dude to be running cocaine for the cartel. But yeah, I mean, there's a really good hitman movie. It's a weird French movie. It's called Man Bites Dog, if you guys have never seen that. But it's kind of like a little black and white documentary where they're following around this guy who just basically kills people for a living. But it's a really interesting look at, like, what if hitmen were real? Or I mean, hitmen are real. Don't get me wrong. Hitmen are totally a real thing. But, you know, just everyday Ben Edlund style hitman just running around town being like, oh, I'm gonna take that guy's wallet, and then pushing him in the you know, the dumpster. It's a really funny scene where he kills this old lady by just scaring her to death and giving her a heart attack because he didn't want to spend money on bullets, and it's pretty fun. But yeah, Memory coming out in theaters this week. Also coming out in theaters, you've probably seen, if you've been to see any of the A24 movies in theaters right now, or any other small run films, The Hatching, which is about this young gymnast who is trying to please her mother, finds this weird egg, hides it, and it hatches into this weird, like, body horror bird Skeksis looking thing from Dark Crystal. The trailer is incredibly unnerving, and if you go to any horror movies or any indie films, you've probably seen the trailer to this movie, but it is coming out this week. I don't think it's going to be getting any sort of wide release, probably fairly limited, maybe expanded release. We will see. But also another incredibly low release film that it would be very interesting to see if it gets any semblance of wide release in the States is Vortex. And Vortex is interesting because it's Gaspar Noé, and this guy is known for pretty unapproachable movies, and over the top sort of. I mean, Irreversible was a movie that really put him on the map back in 2002. One of the guys from Daft Punk, Thomas Bangalter, I believe, did the score for that, which is pretty insane. But it's got some pretty intense scenes in there, but then also Enter the Void became kind of a cult classic when streaming media hit, because it's just very visually insane. But this movie stars, oddly enough, Dario Argento is one of the lead roles in this movie. If you don't know who Dario Argento is, he is a very famous director that was Italo horror. I mean, Suspiria. I mean, if you don't know Argento, then, I'm not going to give you a master class on this tonight, but check him out. But Gaspar Noé did not think that this movie would get a United States release at all, but it's coming out in limited this week. It's about this elderly couple that are kind of stricken by dementia, and it's filmed in a very interesting style with kind of like that 8mm format, but multiple frames stack up. It's pretty interesting looking. The trailer's out there. You can check it out. It's called Vortex. That's getting released this week. But yeah, that's pretty much the new releases. I think it's it's going to give some time for Bad Guys and Sonic and Northman and Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent to give some time to flap just a little bit. So there you have it. That's what's coming out in theaters this week. So yeah, let's talk about what's in theaters right now. Let's jump into. I'm gonna let Jake kick us off here. We're gonna talk about the new film, The Northman.
The Northman. Yeah. Vikings. Real Vikings. Murderous, pillaging, rape, theft, Vikings, slaves, the whole thing. You get to see them in all their wild, drug-addled, violent everything. And it's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
You get to see several different styles of Vikings and see that there are other Scandinavian peoples besides them that suffer at their hands. And it is a journey of a boy who was the son of a king, and he has his kingdom taken, and he vows revenge and grows and does everything he can to take the revenge, and is eventually completely consumed by it. And there's witchcraft.
That's the thing with the revenge, Just
yeah.
It's a slippery slope.
It's a pretty cool movie.
I mean, this cast is pretty incredible. Of course, led by Alexander Skarsgård and Anya Taylor-Joy, who is always really interesting to watch and fun. Ethan Hawke lends some supporting role as the dad that was murdered, and Nicole Kidman. She's in this movie as well, and Nicole Kidman is always disturbing on screen. Like, I don't understand how she's famous, and I don't, and that, okay, that came out wrong. I understand why she's famous. I don't understand why people like her and are not absolutely terrified of her all the time.
She's good at being creepy.
I think she just is evil. I think that she's got like an altar in her house somewhere where she like pulls some sort of sconce or candelabra, and like a wall that goes and makes that like really like concretey noise, and then she goes down and there's like bloodletting and like people going and she just like, she's got a set of eyelids underneath her eyes that blink the opposite way that ours do, and she's from planet Nibiru or something. Like, Nicole Kidman makes me incredibly uncomfortable. And then especially because you go to like AMC theaters, and she's like, "Welcome to AMC theaters. where movies have feelings. And I'm like, bitch, you've never had a feeling in your life. Like, all of your feelings are fake. Like, and she's like, just heartbreak feels right in a place like this. And I'm like, who picked Nicole Kidman to welcome me to the movies? Now I'm like uncomfortable and hate this. She's so weird and I don't like her, but it was
exactly what we were talking about after the movie. Like, my fiance and I were just like, what's the deal with Nicole Kidman? And she's like, well, you would never wear a sparkly suit and high heels to the friggin' movies.
No.
And so, like, everything about it is so weird. But she does good being weird in this movie.
She's great at being, a creep. Even when she was in Batman Forever, I was just like, I don't like you, Dr. Chase Meridian.
All of the characters in this were really good.
Even Bjork shows up, and I'm like, heck yeah, Bjork.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that was her until you pointed it out after the movie.
How did you not know it was Bjork when she was
because she's...
You need to go to the mountain top and go
because she didn't talk like that. She talked like a more normal person by playing a drugged out.
She was a seer. She was like
fake person in a vision of gods or whatever. It made her more normal.
Human behavior. She was just.
It made her more normal.
When you look into the TV, it's like a little city. Johnny Dalton says, "Does she describe how a TV works?" Like, Bjork is one of my favorite humans.
Like Willy Wonka.
Bjork is not of this earth, much like Nicole Kidman, but like the friend, like they're aliens from two different planets, but Bjork is the good species, the one that like loves Earth and is like fascinated with humanity, and Nicole Kidman is like the one that just wants to, mulch us into Soylent Green and then terraform our planet, like that. They're both aliens, but Bjork, I love Bjork.
Well, talking about aliens and stuff like that, though, this movie does a really good job of grounding everything in some sort of historically
scene from Conan the Barbarian,
historically true, trying to remain accurate to history, but bringing in weird little mystical and magical elements with visions of priestesses and witches and Valkyries, and
while still being true to legend and myth.
Yeah,
and
Gates of Valhalla and like this Yggdrasil style tree that's internal to the kings and visions and prophecies. So, but it grounds it all in reality, and it doesn't try to make it like there's some sort of overly magical things, except when they happen on screen, and you're just like, well, that's kind of cool because it just fits seamless with real events in the movie, and everything flows very well, and it doesn't feel out of place because it's all just like you're living in some sort of Nordic, Scandinavian
folklore tale,
mythological.
Almost if someone was telling the story to you. And I think that's what I really liked about it. And as soon as I had no idea. I actually had to go back and look at this to make sure I wasn't crazy. But from the very first scene to the very last scene, I was like, my God. Robert Eggers just remade Conan the Barbarian, which is one of my favorite movies in the history of films. Like, we're talking John Milius' masterpiece. Everyone's like, is that the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger? It's probably stupid because it's got Schwarzenegger in it. That's what everybody thinks. It's one of the greatest movies ever made.
Who are you hanging out with that thinks that
like
Conan's
everybody?
dumb?
Everybody I recommend Conan to, they're like, oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm like, go back and watch it. Basil Poldera's score, which this movie takes.
Tell me who they are, and I will hang them from the tree of woe.
I mean, it is this movie. I like from the very first scene where it comes from dark to light, and it goes, "We're telling you a tale of a warrior king."
There's no Mako
in the beginning of this movie. It was. I didn't even say it was Mako. I said there was a dude. That's how the movie started. Was like there was a Northman king that was on a prowl of revenge in the Nordic Viking times, and you're just like, dude, this is the opening to Conan. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe that was just a weird coincidence. And then like the scene where like his parents get the heads lopped off in the snow, and then he's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm gonna get revenge on this dude. and the dude was Thulsa Doom, but it's also the dude in the movie and the little kid. They're like, get the kid, and he manages to escape, but lands in a life of slavery. And then he's like, rowing a thing that's just like the Wheel of Pain, where he like looks up and his innocent eyes are no longer there, and he's just like, oh, it's just filled with revenge and hatred. And then he like learns to become a berserker, and just like when Conan learns the ways of the warrior. And
so
then,
the berserker thing is sick.
dude, the berserker thing is thick. It's just like praying to Fenrir, who is one of the coolest of all like weird mythological gods, and they're just like, yeah, let's like get naked and kill everything, and it's just the coolest. And then there's scenes where he finds like the night blade, which is just like the Atlantean sword, where he goes into that crypt, and then there's the dead king holding the sword, and he like he spookily takes it, and he thinks the king's gonna wake up and get it, but doesn't. And he like goes Krom. But in this one, it's just like, oh, like Odin, and then he takes the sword and has to defeat the things in his mind, and it's just like, this movie is Conan the Barbarian, and I freaking love it. And and then I was like, okay, am I crazy that I didn't just rewatch Conan the Barbarian? And everyone's like, you're crazy. And then I did some internet digging with a bunch of interviews with Robert Eggers, and he's just like, yeah, dude, Conan the Barbarian is one of my favorite movies, and I put a whole lot of references to this movie, and I had to not try and keep watching this movie so I didn't just completely remake this movie. And I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. Eggers has as big of a hard-on for Conan as I do, and I'm super... Don't make that face! It is totally cool to have a hard-on for Conan, the original. Like, this movie is going to fail at the box office. Like, this movie is not for everybody. This movie, at Night Owl, she says Conan the Barbarian is probably top 3 of my movies. Go see this Northman. You're gonna really like it.
But it's so good, and it's paced very well, and it has tons of like super cool characters.
It is slow as hell. So if you're expecting an action epic,
paced really well, and
it is paced very
and it splits it into
appropriately.
chapters, so you know that things are going to change, and there's fun. All your favorite Scandinavian celebrities show up in it. You got half Thor and Bjork, and you got
Bang,
Alexander Skarsgård's like dad's in there.
You got Eldar Skar, Invengar Sigurdsson, you've got Bjork, you've got Alwyn Fiore, you've got all the... I mean, Eggers is the coolest. Like, can we just say that Eggers is probably one of the most inventive, box office friendly artistic directors that we've had in a very long time. He is the problem though is his movies are probably going to become increasingly less box office what's the word I'm looking for?
Friendly?
Well, yeah, friendly, viable, I think was the word I was looking for. But you've got The Lighthouse, which everybody that was in the theater with me seeing The Lighthouse that clearly wasn't signed up for what we were about to happen or have happen to us was like, did that guy just masturbate to a stick and then kill a pelican? And we're like, yeah, dude, wasn't that sick? And they're like, you're sick. And then,
yeah, I mean, if your first response is like, that's sick, then...
The movie was awesome. And The Witch was awesome. And, I feel like we're going to be seeing a whole lot more amazing films from Eggers. Like, his style of movie making is so... I mean, it's crazy how attentive to detail he is for everything that he is making. Like, it's so immersive. Like The Lighthouse, that maritime culture, you're just like, the minute references of historically accurate and culturally accurate stuff that he puts into these. And the same with The Witch. I remember reading an article where he was like really being anal retentive about these fence posts on the set of The Witch and how they were too close together. And he's like, well, if you go back into like the 1600s or whatever, he's like, this is how they made fences. Do it over. And he was like super up their butts about it. And then with the Northman, there's so many small details. Like I remember, seeing little details about like funeral rites and things where they were like plugging their noses. It's Viking stuff that Vikings do that you would not see if like, Michael Bay was doing like, oh, we're going to make Gladiator, but Vikings. And, it's just going to be Brad Pitt, like, putting his hand over wheat and, like, still being Brad Pitt. But this was not that. This was Viking shit.
Yeah, and it was everything. None of the kills are clean, which is cool because it's like everything is super brutal. Nothing is like smooth and perfect. Everything's like disturbing and not okay. And it's fun.
And as Night Alisha said, that stuff's appreciated. If you know about it, you appreciate the accuracy. And I think that's what makes Eggers an unapproachable director for a lot of just popcorn moviegoers, because that stuff is lost. You know, there is a lot of detail put into those things to make it immersive for people that appreciate that accuracy. But other people are like, I'm pretty sure Thor is a Viking god, and I don't see any fat dudes playing PlayStation and hanging out eating tacos with Hulk. And that's what I was thinking about when I came into this. I thought it was going to be Northman just riding with Odin, shooting bolts with Thor, just getting rad on it, dude. And this is a movie where a guy's covered in feces for half the movie, dude, cuts his hair, like, does drugs a lot, and I mean, it's gross. He cuts two dudes up and shapes them into a horse somehow. Why is everybody cutting off horse heads? That's weird, dude. And it's like, don't you give a shit about Vikings? The answer is no. And it's what makes this movie really good. So The Northman's awesome.
It was pretty good.
It's pretty awesome. I would watch this movie again. And you know, the last one of the things I want to say about this movie that makes it really, I mean, the performances were great. You know, Alexander Skarsgård just completely carried this movie.
Plus, that dude got beefed out.
He got so beefed out. And
like, he's twice the size he was in Tarzan.
He's so cool. And
he just runs around naked, murdering everything.
With gusto. Mm-hmm. But the other interesting thing that I liked about this, in a way that kind of reminded me of movies like Adventures of Baron Munchausen and sort of that inventive style of Terry Gilliam, in a way where the storytelling bleeds into the reality of this world.
I see what you're saying.
And, you know, their belief in the mythos makes things manifest in the real world. So as a viewer, you're not sure what is magic and what is reality and what is them projecting. And it kind of opens up the world of, like, how religions work and how they were made and how these people back then believed in that kind of stuff and how these mythologies perpetuated themselves. And, you know, like, something as simple as, you know, she was a forest witch or whatever, but she just knew what mushrooms would get you totally fucked up, right? And but that was magic, you know. And they're like, oh, the spirits are coming in, and, like, these are the sort of tales that could be told third and fourth hand that would make people believe in the supernatural. The weird part, though, was the sword that wouldn't open unless it was nighttime. And, you know, you're like, is this something that they're manifesting in their head so hard that they're just afraid to open it so it can't open, or actually couldn't open? And
yeah, but there's the other things where, like, where he meets the witches and prophecies come true, and ravens are actually, like,
helping him out.
Yeah,
because
like,
Odin was a representation, like, one of the main representations on Earth was of Odin is the raven. And but that's why this movie's so good.
Yeah,
is it takes those things and blends them into fantasy reality, to where you can put yourself in the perspective of the main characters. And that's something that Eggers does really, really, really well, is giving you the same perspective that the person in the film is doing. Like, you are a participant observer, not just an observer. And I think that gets lost on a lot of people, but it makes for a really, really, really good movie. So The Northman in theaters right now. You can check it out. I highly recommend that you do, because it's not making a lot of money. And going into something I'm going to talk about here in just a second, after I talk about the next movie that I'm going to talk about, which is, of course, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Another movie that has no business existing, but unfortunately, due to box office things, is a bad news bears scenario for comedies and indie comedies. This movie has been hyped up a lot, and it did not deliver at the box office this week, despite being freaking amazing. Let me start by saying that I've not had as much fun watching a comedy in theaters in probably a recent memory, years, as I had watching this movie. Because I don't normally like situational comedies on the big screen. You know, not my favorite genre. Most of it tends to be very repetitious, very tropey, very of the moment, like Family Guy style humor. If like you didn't tune into Twitter that week, you wouldn't get it. But Vince says, "Oh, I didn't even know it was a comedy." No, this is a full throttle comedy. And not quite up its own ass comedy like Being John Malkovich, which is again a very similar in tone, where it's breaking the fourth wall and letting an actor play himself, or something like, say, Steve Coogan's The Trip, which is a dark comedy, but still in the comedy element where a real life actor is playing a hyper stylized version of themselves. But which also, if you've never seen Steve Coogan's The Trip or all the subsequent sequels, I highly recommend them. They're exquisite. But you know, Nick Cage is not the first actor to play himself in a movie, so let's just get that out of the way. But
and he's not really himself in this, right?
Of course,
he's not Nicolas Cage. He's Nick Cage.
He's Nick Cage, but he is the Nick Cage that was in Con Air and Raising Arizona, and you know,
he's not him, but he's him.
But he's him.
Yeah,
and you know, this movie handles the concept of celebrity. It handles aging relevance. It handles friendship. It handles trope. It handles what's marketable. It handles all of these things with such a hilarious, like, just ease. It just goes through very difficult things that normally most movies get very, very wrong, and does it in such a fun and engaging manner. I mean, you've got an incredible supporting cast, which is mainly just Pedro Pascal. This is a buddy cop movie, right? Don't let anybody convince you that this is not a buddy cop formula. This movie fits into every 80s and 90s buddy cop formula in the history of movies, in all the right ways. And Nicolas Cage, it's referential. You do not have to know a lot about Nicolas Cage. Like, you could not know where all the memes come from. You could not know that this meme's from Vampire's Kiss. You could not know where the Golden Guns come from, you know, but still have an amazing time with this movie because everybody knows Nick Cage at this point, right? Nick Cage has become an institution. But you know, this movie just starts, like, from the first scene to like the next to last scene, there was a joke set up at the very beginning that had this incredibly amazing payoff towards the end that just also solidified the deal that the writers absolutely knew what they were doing and had a purpose for everything. And Pedro Pascal plays this likable villain hero again character that you can't help but just absolutely fall in love with, like Nicolas Cage does. It's a bromance of epic proportions. And you know me, I don't normally like drug scenes in movies where it's like, oh, we're taking marijuanas, look at how crazy the world is, it's a Hangover Part 9, and everybody thinks it's funny. But they did an LSD scene that had me laughing out loud in the theater. Like, it's this movie is so well written for a comedy that that takes itself seriously and then completely takes itself for exactly what it is, which is a movie about Nick Cage being Nick Cage, but not being Nick Cage at all. And, you know, it has so much heart in scenes where Nick Cage is dealing with the problems of his family, you know, the struggles of being a celebrity that makes a lot of movies. It probably doesn't have a good home life, has troubles dealing, you know, reaching his daughter and getting a divorce, you know, and all the stuff that we were talking about, like the Johnny Depp, like behind the scenes, like the tragic sadness of celebrity, and, you know, how to maintain relevance. But then you spiral off into this weird world of, oh, he's getting involved in some sort of sleeper agent, CIA, drug cartel situation, but only Nick Cage with Nick Cage skills can, you know, save the day. And he does and doesn't all at the same time. And I don't want to give anything away with this movie because the ride is so much fun and the jokes are there and they land every single time. and no one's watching this movie, and it's really upset. Let's see. Let me go check back in the comments here. Is this the one time you talked about last week with Nick Cage? Is Nick Cage? Yes. Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. In the spirit of Nick Cage, it should be only released on HD DVD. No, this movie. Get this movie. This movie I would buy on physical media. Yes. Melody Mayhem says, I'm so confused and intrigued by the thought of this movie. Go see it in the theater. Scratch that itch. Like if you're intrigued, don't wait for it to hit streaming. Show these companies that you want to see this kind of movie in theaters, and as in the stuff they share is based in or actual reality, or is it just a play on what it would be like? Of course, it's a play on what it would be like. You know, I mean, obviously these things exist. Face Off exists. Snake Eyes exists. 8mm exists. Guarding Tess exists. Like, you know, The Wicker Man exists. All these movies that Nicolas Cage was in that they reference. And Nicolas Cage has an imaginary friend who gives him advice, who is just himself from the 90s. And he's just like, you're still it, Nick, blah, blah, blah. And it's like this, you know, deep faked, you know, younger version of himself giving him advice. And, you know, it's fun seeing those, because it's him interacting with himself. But the thing is this movie, before I'm going to stop reviewing the movie and talk to you about what I wanted to talk to you about with this movie, is this movie's not making money. And this movie is, people are already talking about this movie and the Northman as like the death of indie cinema at the theater. And this is terrible because, you know, as I believe Johnny Dalton in the comments, he always asks, is it pants worthy? Is it worth going to see in the theater? And, you know, absolutely. And any of these indie films that are taking a chance, you know, for me, one of the most frustrating things that I think that both Jake and I have on the show is when we say, hey, guys, you're all upset that there's no original content movies and no foreign films and no indie films and none of the stuff being played in the theater. And when it does, you don't go see it, you know? And then you go, I'm just going to wait for it to go to streaming. But when you wait for it to go to streaming, that's the grave. It's already too late, you know? And they've already sold it. It's already gone off to auction house, and it's just a corpse that they're like, well, maybe we can squeeze it for a few more bucks. And when you go and see it in the theater, you know, when you go see, you know, whatever, one of Jake's foreign films, and you go see this movie about Nick Cage, you're like, I don't know. It sounds neat. I just don't know. Go check it out. And when you go check it out, regardless, I mean, chances are you're going to be amazed and you're going to have a great time. But what you're going to ultimately do is you're going to show these studios that these movies are worth investing in. The Northman cost $90 million to make, and it made 12 this weekend at the box office. That ain't good. And Johnny, you're not just a bad person, but I've used you as an example because you're in the chat. And but it is behavior, going back to what we talked about at the very beginning about convenience, about like, I don't have time. And you know, if we can make time for culture, and if we can make time for good content, and if we can, you know, not just expect it to fit into our schedule, but fit it into our schedule, or expect it to fit us into, you know, hang on, let me, like a flow chart. We can't expect the content to accommodate our schedule. We need to accommodate our schedule for the content. And when we start doing that, again, that's when we start seeing the success of movies like this. And when we see the success of movies like this, we start seeing studios that will invest in movies like this. Because right now, they only want Dumbledores and Sonic the Hedgehogs and the bad guys and, you know, more Batmans and all this kind of stuff. You know, when you see, you're not going to see another $90 million Eggers movie in probably a decade, I promise, because this movie, that's why we're not going to see another, you know, Villain View Blade Runner. You know, they're like, oh, no, that made no money. Let's get out of here. It didn't do what it needed to do. So, you know, when we vote with our dollar, we get more of the things that we pay for. So go out and vote for your dollar. Night Owl, she says, here's part of the deeper problem. I think movies of being social to a certain degree. If you're isolated, it's easier to consume media alone at home because so many people are isolated in real life. Movies are a social thing.
Afterward, yeah.
Yeah. You consume them. Like I mean, we've talked about this several times. Like, there is something to be said about seeing a movie in an audience full of people and you're quiet, and then as soon as, what did we do when we walked out of the theater?
Talk about it.
We sat in the lobby and we're like, dude, and if I go home and I watch a movie, I don't like call up my homies and go, dude. They're like, shut up. Like, I didn't watch this right now. But there is a social element to art and cinema, especially, that by relying more on convenience, it sort of kills the content. Just like DoorDash. Like, DoorDash is killing tiny, small local restaurants because you're depending on convenience and you're asking them to sacrifice to make it more convenient for you. And by doing so, you lessen the quality that they're able to provide for you. And, everyone's like, well, they charge more, right? And it's like, no, the convenience element makes the money, not the content creator. It's the distribution that is taking the money because you're paying for the convenience. And that's a whole different platform. Anyway, while we're doing that, let's go over the box office. You want to do some box office? Do you want to do the box office?
We can do it, yeah.
Go for it.
All right. So, top 10 domestic. What made money this past week? Coming in at number 10, we got Ambulance.
Woo woo.
Yeah, made $1.79 million, bringing its total up to 19 for a 3-week run. I didn't realize that movie had already been out 3 weeks.
3 weeks. And you know what? I haven't seen it, but critics are saying it's probably one of the best Michael Bay films.
Really?
Yeah. But, the bar is kind of low.
I did see like a little Facebook reel about how he hired some super drone racer guy to get some super sick shots in the movie or whatever. So there might be some cool stuff there. Number 9, Morbius, still going on there. Made $2.3 million this last weekend, bringing its total to $69 million domestic out of 4 weeks.
It just crawled over the 150 million mark, I think, worldwide.
Worldwide?
So,
Yeah, yeah. Number 8, Father Stu, movie that I didn't know anything about until it started showing up in Facebook ads like 2 days before it was released. $3.3 million at the box office, which brought it to $13.87 million after 2 weeks of release there.
Mark Wahlberg, hey, pray to Jesus. Do you guys Jesus?
Yeah, and if not, he'll punch you, based on a true guy. Number 7, Lost City. It made $4.3 million at the box office. Still going. How about that? $85 million is its 5-week total.
Cha-ching.
How about that? Not so bad for that movie. I imagine it has probably met its budget at least.
Let's see what it did. It got a pretty big international release too. Got 42 million overseas, so 128 worldwide. So
yeah,
not bad.
Number 6, Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is now in 2,100 theaters. How about that?
Go check it out. We reviewed it, not last week, but the week before.
Yes.
So definitely recommend that movie.
It made $5.4 million this past weekend, bringing its total up to just shy of $27 million with 5 weeks released, but not all 5 of those have been anywhere near that 2,100 theater total. I think there for a time it was like 3, wasn't it? Like,
yeah. The interesting thing about this movie is it hasn't gotten an international release yet. So
really, still,
yeah, I know. A24 is very domestic savvy. Like they're kind of a United States thing. They're very small. They haven't gotten into the global market yet. But this is a movie that I think would track in other foreign markets. But I'd love to see it in a global.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it'll get there at some point. Michelle Yeoh's too big of a star to keep it contained like that. And then number 5, opening week of The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. It brought in $7.1 million, which is its full total for the weekend there. As its first week opening, no.
Lionsgate taking a big chance on this movie, and opening up at number 5 is a pretty bad opening if you really break it down.
And as much as you said people should go watch it in theaters, you know this is going to be one of those streaming hits. Like, people are going to watch it and they're like, oh, man, why didn't I watch this before? Nicolas Cage, ridiculous. But
This will be a cult classic.
He's had so many straight-to-video films recently that have done
Mandy
well.
and Pig. And like,
yeah.
But this movie, it's crazy because that's what I don't understand about this movie is everybody's just like, oh, yeah, Nicolas Cage. I'll wait for it on
Maybe it's because they're so
streaming.
used to that at-home Nicolas Cage movie experience now with Pig and the one that had the Jaguar or whatever on the boat. And what was the one where he had the explosive Gaunt's suit on?
It was like Showdown at Darkness Cafe or whatever. It had a weird
Wasn't
name.
it at all.
I'm writing that script right now.
I watched
Showdown
it.
at Darkness Cafe.
I watched it and reviewed it on the show. I just can't
It was called like
remember.
the Ghosts of Poopy Point.
Something Ghostland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Ghost of Poopy Point is my next film also.
You and Dave Pilkey can team up, the Captain Underpants guy. Number 4, just above it, is The Northman, which opening week, $12.29 million.
Against a $90 million budget, though. Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's an art film, man. It's artsy. It's images. It's an experience. It's something that's not for everybody, but it's really good. So, yeah, that's...
Check it out.
Tough for its budget, but definitely do recommend going and watching that one. Number 3, Fantastic Beast, dropping down, made $14 million this week.
Hasn't even broke 100.
67 is its total.
That's rough for Fantastic Beasts because, it's not doing as good as Grindelwald, and
Prisoners of the
Grindelwald
Ghostland.
wasn't very good in terms of box office either. But again, when we constantly rely on IPs to be better than their predecessors, the title of tonight's show is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Expectations at the box office. And I think that's
the Fantastic Beast, though, has just been like...
just nosedive.
Yeah.
Nosedive. And we reviewed that
Each
last
one's
week.
worse than the last one. And then number 2, Sonic 2, remaining at the number 2 spot, brought in $15.6 million this weekend, which brings its total domestic to $146.25 million. How about that? 3 weeks of release. Yeah, I mean, it's killing it. It's probably close to at least 5 of these movies put together.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Sonic killing it, but Sonic actually a decent movie.
It
just
wasn't
like
bad.
The first one.
And we reviewed that 2 weeks ago on the same show with Everything Everywhere All at Once. You can go watch the replay or download the podcast.
And then number 1, continuing with Fantastic Animated Beast, The Bad Guys, opened up at $23.95 million.
Animated movies for
Its
kids.
first week of release.
Talking animals
Killed it.
doing people things. That's what they do, man. That is what they do. And not my favorite genre in the world. I think I need some sort of Twitch emoji that's just talking animals doing people things.
I hadn't even seen this movie advertised until last week, maybe.
How? It's all, yeah. I mean, I'm always in that theater watching dumb shit. So, I don't know. I mean, I hear it's a competent movie, but animals doing people things. This is like my least favorite genre, y'all. I don't know why. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. Sing, Zootopia. I mean, I think it all went downhill after Ants and Bug's Life, like the 2 Ant movies that came out at the same time. And then something happened. There was like did they turn on the Large Hadron Collider that year?
It's about to be turned back on.
I know, and I feel like we're in the universe that I don't like talking animals doing people things. Like there's a universe that I'm just like, yeah, show me more of the B movie, and this is just not that universe.
Yeah, we're in that Berenstain Bear universe right now.
Definitely Stain.
I miss my old universe where was the Bernstein Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'll take the burn. You can keep the stain. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be weird when that collider turns back on. I don't know what other universe we're going to be propelled into and which version of me is going to stay in the good one. I want to go to the good one.
Yeah, I want to go back to my old one.
The stain, the burn.
No, yeah, the Bernstein.
Go back to the
Bears,
Bernstein and keep the Berenstain Anyway, that's what's playing at the theaters. That's what's going on. That's your box office roundup, and that is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in. We are going to get the heck out of here, but we will be back next week. Make sure to like and subscribe. Find us on the Facebook, the Twitch, or the YouTube. You can download this podcast wherever it is you get wherever it is you down podcasts from. If you down them hard. And like and subscribe. Send us money. Send us emails. Send us whatever. If you get on the Twitch and you save up enough channel points, you can actually request us to do a whole episode just on a video movie of your choice. We will do it. We will do it for you. So get on that Twitch. Save up those channel points and cash them in, dude. It might even be a crowdfunding thing. It's a lot of points I'm asking for because this stuff ain't free. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. As always, I am the Boom Operator.
I'm the Grip.
And we will see you guys next week.